You've got to make decisions about things that you don't know a lot about. You hire people who are experts, got to give them that opportunity to succeed.
So welcome back, everybody. Rich Brubaker, mission-driven entrepreneur based in Shanghai. Here today with Vikas Garg, who is the founder and CEO of abillion. Amazing organization that's grown around 170 countries, support, transition, offer up vegan food for users, but then also supporting businesses and their transition to add more to the menu. Vikas, thank you very much for the time you've taken. As a starting point, would you mind introducing yourself and the mission that you're on to our community?
Hey, thanks, Rich. My name is Vikas Garg. I'm the founder and CEO of abillion, and our mission is really in the name of our company. We're here to inspire and help 1 billion people save the planet. And we think a really big part of saving the planet and a big part of sustainability ultimately comes down to the choices that each of us make every single day. Fed, the things that we eat, the things that we buy, the places we go, how we get there.
Yeah.
Really, the question for us at the time, for me, was can we redesign algorithms and these sort of social networks to actually spread? Can we use data and social data for social good? Can we redesign algorithms to actually spread sustainability and impact and social well-being? Is that possible? And so that's been my obsession for the last 5 years.
Where did the original idea come from? And what was the original pain point that you were trying to solve?
Very simple. I've been vegetarian my whole life. Along that journey, I decided to go vegan. And it may not seem like a big step going from being vegetarian to vegan, but man, it was hard. And I said, hey, this is such an impactful journey. We want more people to be able to experience the joys of this journey, but how do we make that a lot easier for them? We wanted to make it a lot more accessible. We wanted to make it more fun. We wanted to make it easier for people, find great options. And a big part of that was also how do we expand? How do we use sort of social media as a tool for consumer advocacy to really expand the number of options?
Current day, what's the size, scale, and scope of abillion? And what is the value that the ecosystem is creating in your mind?
So we are at about 1 million people worldwide who've taken the first step and joined our platform. At the core of it, our philosophy has been is how do we use data for good? Okay. So back very early days when people were reviewing vegan options at restaurants, our interns were going and finding the names and email addresses of those restaurant owners and plugging them in. And that every day we'd spend a couple of hours researching and finding that. Then when we launched consumer product, the echo chamber went parabolic. And today we have more than 500,000 consumer products that are rated and reviewed on abillion from around the world. It's crazy. It's like, people think plant-based meat is a small industry. We have nearly 30,000 plant-based meat products from around the world, not just on abillion, and over 100,000 cosmetics products. So it's what we wanted to do is really make sure that businesses are getting that feedback back. So they're improving, so they're increasing their options. And I'll tell you, when we first launched in Singapore, we scraped restaurant menus in Singapore. And what we found was often less than 2% of restaurant menus in Singapore had vegan options, had plant-based options. Okay. And so we're not talking about like a plant-based burger. What we're talking about is even a salad, even something vegetarian or vegan, right, on their menu. We're sending out thousands of emails every single day. And what that's doing is it's creating this competition. It's getting the customer feedback back out to the businesses. It's showing them what their competitors are doing. So if it's a Japanese restaurant in Singapore, we're showing it the best rated vegan Japanese food from other restaurants in Singapore and around the world. And we're sending them content and information that ultimately the goal is consumer advocacy. How do we take all restaurants and help all restaurant businesses around the world go from maybe 1% to 10%, 20%, 30%? And that's really the goal, because that's going to move the needle from a sustainability perspective. And to finish on the example on Singapore, we've now helped expand the number of vegan options on restaurant menus in Singapore from about 1,000 back in 2017 to we just did our Singapore Top 50 Vegan Dish Awards. And I think we had 21 or 22,000 options to choose from just on the abillion app, just for this market alone.
You've got 1 million users now after 5 years. That's some very good growth. Are there times where you can look back now and say, wow, this made that work? How do you maintain that momentum? How do you plan for it? And how often do you think that you were were right versus how much do you think it's good timing or great luck or a great partnership?
Because we've taken that very sort of that route to kind of grow organically, a lot of that growth has come unexpectedly. Every investor we spoke to as well, where are you going to be focused? Where do you want to grow?
Yeah.
And, I would have said, well, the US, right, makes a lot of sense. And then the question would be, well, why aren't you based there, right? But what's happened is we've grown around the world into 180 countries. And if we look at like our top 10 countries, which happens to be about 80% of our activity month in, month out, it's really diverse. It's like a mix of English markets, Spanish speaking markets, and a few other languages. So it's the US, Canada, but it's also Mexico and Argentina and Brazil in the Western hemisphere. And then going over to Europe, it's the UK, Spain, Italy, and Germany. Then South Africa, which we would have never expected, and we would have never invested any marketing dollars in, but South Africa is one of our most active markets. And then it's places like Australia and Singapore, which probably are a bit more obvious, but Spain, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, these are not markets that we would have ever thought of investing time in, because they seem like they're like very meaty cultures, but it just so happens that we have a very passionate user base in some of these markets. Italy, for example, last year went from 0% to 15-20% of our active user base, and it was not planned for at all. It just ended up being a perfect storm of people taking notice of what we're building and then kind of getting on abillion and work and partnerships with a few nonprofits that really catalyzed that growth.
How much is the vegan community or the plant-based community or even the vegetarian community core to this? Because you mentioned the NGOs on a regular basis, but I've always found like the vegan community tends to be super strong and really help each other. Like, are there different communities that you tap into and for each market?
90% of the nonprofits that we support are vegan organizations. So they're organizations, they might be nonprofits that are focused on activism. They might be, most of them are nonprofits that focus on direct action. And that means activism, or that means animal rescue, animal welfare, farm animal welfare. So that tends to be the most of these organizations, if not all of them, are run by vegans, and the people who work there are vegans, and the community that ultimately supports them, in their communities, tends to be a largely sort of vegan community. And when we're thinking about kind of what does the beginning look like, if we're going to build something that ultimately, like for us, it's going back to one of the first things we talked about today, is how do we bring on the people who are going to do the hard work to build up this community, to build up the platform, to contribute the content. How are we going to do that? It comes down to it's this group of people like myself, and a lot of us at abillion and our team, who are very, 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 very passionate about the mission that we're on.
How do you then look at expanding beyond the core community that you've been working with to bring in more people, to bring them into the movement, work with them, find collaborations? Like, is that something that you're super focused on, or you just think that this group is already going to grow so much anyway that you can really grow with it?
I think it also comes in stages, right? Our focus on our community right now, our focus on our community in the past few years, and our focus on really building something that's valuable and useful for this group of very, very passionate people, right, has been very important and has grounded us. At the same time, our goal is to help 1 billion people go vegan, right? And that's what the vegan community wants, right? Of course, like a lot of people, I think most vegans would say they'd want everybody in the world to be vegan, right? So when we think about platforms that inspire us, I think about Strava, which is, if you're a cyclist or you're a runner anywhere in the world, you probably know about Strava. Or I think about companies like Headspace and Calm that are focused on mindfulness and meditation. And we look to those companies and think about what is their theory of change, and what is our theory of change? How do we build that where we are welcoming to a much larger, broader community, and then over time we're helping those people become healthier, live more sustainably, and increase their consciousness, where their appetite for sustainability and impact becomes ingrained into their DNA. That's what we are striving for. We have a lot to learn. We have a lot to do and experiment to get to the point where we are achieving that mission.
What do you think holds you back?
100 different things. Like, we're trying to build a business, and we're trying to get people to come back, keep coming back and growing. And it's the knowledge, and it's the team size, and it's the amount of capital that we have. With the funding that we have, we have limitations. We can't just hire 100 people and hire behavioral scientists and psychologists and PhDs to do all of these things, right? And we have to slog it out and get to the next stage and prove ourselves.
You have a lot that you want to get done. And as you mentioned, you're kind of capital restricted. And we're in an environment where raising money right now is more challenging than it was, say, 18 months ago. So do you feel more pressure right now as the founder to find that balance? Like, you can't necessarily go get a ton of stupid money anymore. You have to really make do with what you have and be, I won't say economize, but you have to be very focused on how you're going to spend it and how you measure the ROI. But that might at times be kind of the opposite of what you need to do to find that growth to 10 million, 100 million.
So raising capital has always been difficult for us and for this idea. I look at every round that we've done. We've done 3 rounds at our Series A at the end of 2021. It's always been really challenging. We've had to always kind of build and feel with this feeling that we're kind of like bootstrapping it. So yeah, it's you're 100% right. It's like, you have to be focused on ROI. You have to be cautious about sort of poofy metrics, because it's really easy to kind of get your head wrapped up around that and start chasing things that aren't moving the needle. You have to be really real with your team, because it's very, when you hire people, then it's like very easy to start spending a lot of money, and you do this, when you do that. And, you got to be able to have those difficult discussions all the time and really sit down and analyze, what are we doing? Are the investments that we're making paying off? You got to be able to look at everything. I think one thing that I have done, for better or worse, depending on who you talk to, is depending on who you talk to from abillion, past, present, future, is I have done all of the accounting. Every penny that we have spent, I have done it all every month, since the beginning, because I started the company with my own money. So I did all of the accounting myself, and we continue to do that. Now I have a finance person on my team, but I still pay all of the bills. I still do the payroll myself. I try to really know where every penny is going, so I can ask the annoying questions, that has its own drawbacks too, because sometimes you have to hire people and you have to let them run and do what you hired them to do. And you want to think long term, and you need to give people some air and breathing room to do things and grow and experiment and learn. And it's just kind of finding that balance, as you say.
It's probably one of the hardest things, particularly if you're a solo founder, to do, because you started it. It was your capital, it was your idea. You brought in the first people, and those first people were really on your team, right? They had to believe in you. And then over time, you have to learn how to delegate, and then not just delegate, but let them get further down the path before you check in, right? It's this constant learning, of yourself, but also in the organization.
It is very hard as a solo founder in one way, because it's like everything stops with you. You are, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. But often I'd say that one of the biggest challenges with startups, and we hear this concept of imposter syndrome a lot. It's just like, you've got to make decisions about things that you don't know a lot about. And so, I think common sense is really important. At the same time, if you hire people who are experts at things, you've got to give them that opportunity to succeed.
If you're talking to an aspiring entrepreneur, what are 3 things that you would tell them they need to get done, do it right as they're launching?
Man, make sure that you are building something you really want to build, and that you're very, very passionate about, because otherwise it's too easy to get disengaged, get distracted. That's for sure. 2, just realize that, it's a grind, and that it's it's really, really hard. And three is, I'd say maybe three is the most important one, and I'm still learning how to do it. But it's that you value your relationships, and simply, you never know when a no becomes a yes. But be good to people. Like, try to be good to people. You're gonna have to have difficult conversations. You're gonna have really terrible conversations from time to time. Bad things will happen, and good things will happen, and a mix of things will happen. But just do your best to try to be professional and be good to people, and develop your relationships, and appreciate people, even people if they give you time but they don't give you anything else. Just be appreciative of the time, try to learn something.
Well, I've definitely appreciated this time. Thank you very much.
Me too. Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. Thank you for making the time for me and inviting me onto your show.